Call this meeting to order. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of Township of North Huron accept the agenda for the September 16th, 2019 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? I have Rick. Do I have a seconder? I have Paul. All in favor?
Can your word.
Carries. Want me to speak louder, William? Disclosure of pecuniary interests. Seeing none, we'll move on. Public comments. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to speak on any item of business that's on the agenda tonight. There's a 2-minute time limit, and I will stop if there's anyone that uses profanity or anything else like that. So, would anybody like to step up to the podium, give your name and address, and talk to anything on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we shall move on. Consent agenda, that the Council Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent agenda 5.1.1, and further that the Council Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.2 and 5.3.3 for information. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin. Do I have a seconder? Rick, any questions or comments? Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, Reeve, this is regarding our own minutes here for council. For 9.3, under public comments, it was missed that my inquiry, this is regarding housing, my inquiry was more about inquiring out, doing studies for people that are wanting to come here, new people, and add to the workforce. What kind of housing do they need, which it's not forgetting about people in the municipality that need housing. It's got nothing to do with that. They're included, obviously. But it's for the workforce people from other.
Maybe Chris Watson, you might touch on that later tonight in your discussions.
Be happy to do my darndest to do that.
Thank you very kindly. So, Chris, we have a county member here that's going to speak about this problem, and we've been working very hard on it, and it is a big headache. So,
Okay,
we
good.
appreciate your thoughts and concerns, and we'll talk about that a little later. Anyone else? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor to accept? Passes. Public meetings and hearings and delegations. Chris Watson of the Economic Development Officer, County of Huron, labor shortage, progress and initiatives. Well, Christopher.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I confess my ignorance here just to see if the presentation
It's
is
on the desktop.
Thank you very much. Bear with me here just as I... Oh, that's not oh, I got it now. Sorry, everybody. There we are. Okay, well, Mr. Mayor and councilors, thank you very much for inviting me here tonight. As you mentioned, my name is Chris Watson. I'm an Economic Development Officer with the County of Huron. I believe I've had the chance to speak with you at least one time before, and pleased to be here again. I do apologize. My colleague Kristen Crane was not able to make it here with me today, but she is the colleague that I work most closely with on this issue, and we recently attended the North Huron Economic Development Committee as well. We were asked to come before you tonight to just chat about some of the initiatives going ahead to address the workforce issues, in particular the employer roundtables. Before I get right to that though, what I'd like to do is just take a quick moment to go over some of the background. Moving back to 2015, all of the municipalities in the county, as well as the county itself, went through a process to develop a number of economic development strategies. North Huron had a great strategy, as well as which, in addition to the other municipalities, helped craft the county-wide strategy. The number one challenge from that strategy was ensuring that there are enough workers. So going back to the 2019 Employer One survey, so again, just to give you some idea of the lay of the land. This past year, 82% of Huron County employers had hard to fill positions. So what that means is they had a position that takes a long time, so above 5-6 months to fill it, and that was up from 50% not 2 years ago. The most recent unemployment rate from the Stratford Bruce Peninsula region, so that includes Huron, Perth, Bruce, and Grey, was 3.4%. Now it's just recently gone up slightly. It's about 4.1, but that is, our understanding, is the lowest unemployment rate in the province. So what does this look like? This is all, I mean, those are sort of high-level numbers. To the average employer on the ground, what that looks like is if you can't find the workers you need, you end up postponing adding additional shifts. That in turn can push back delivery dates on the products that you promised your customers and potential lost sales. As well, it makes folks a bit hesitant to invest in expansion, and in some cases can even cut down on the number of products that the company produces. So in order to address that, the department in 2018 put together an economic development, a workforce attraction and retention strategy. There was a number of different initiatives under the strategy under 5 different pillars. So preparing the community for potential newcomers and a new workforce that may look look different, look culturally different than before. Attract people, so trying to get people interested in the region. Hire people, getting people into the jobs, settling people, getting them into their communities, and then retaining people, keeping them here. So one of those initiatives that came out of this strategy was the Employer Roundtable. We started these in November of 2017 and brought together employers essentially interested in working together to address hiring and retention issues. The idea was to identify tangible actions that could be worked on together to address this labor shortage. So recently, after about a year of running that roundtable, we decided to split the roundtables into North and South, just because a lot of the initiatives that made sense for folks on the north side didn't necessarily make sense for folks on the south side. So for example, it may make more sense for an employer in Wingham to consider trying to attract or bus workers from Kitchener-Waterloo, but it may make less sense to do that from London. Whereas down in Exeter, London may make sense and KW may not make a whole lot of sense. So there's a number of things like that that made sense to split things up into north and south. So what came out of those roundtables? So up to this point, there's been a number of different initiatives that have come out of those roundtables as a result of us working together. First was identifying training needs. So what we did was we got all the employers together, we had them tell us what training they needed to give an employee for any of the jobs that they are hiring for, so that someone off the street could do the job. So what training did they need? So we had all the employers in the room, identify, if it was supervisory training, first aid, forklift, whatever, and had them put it on a bunch of different categories. And what we were able to do from there is see that there was a bunch of different employers that needed the exact same thing. And then we brought a bunch of training organizations in there, the Fanshawe Colleges, the Centers for Employment and Learning, Conestoga, as well as Technical Training Group, to say, okay, what can you offer? And then we were able to put the two together so that an individual employer could see, well, if I want to offer forklift training, these are the 3 other employers that are also interested in forklift training, and these are the 3 people that can provide it to me. So essentially, just trying to make it as easy as possible to get as much training done as we could. So we sent that out to all the various different employers. The other thing we've done is we've tried to connect everybody up with service providers. So there's 2, I apologize as I go through this, we may get into some heavy Employment Ontario workforce chat, but In every region, there's an Employment Ontario service provider that essentially their job is to help people who are outside of, or who aren't working for whatever reason, get work. So in our area, that's the Centers for Employment and Learning and Conestoga Career Center. Most of the employers knew about those two service providers, but they weren't aware of some of the other ones close by that could help as well. Some of the notable examples are up there. So Employ is a great one. What they do is they help newcomers to Canada who have more professional or higher skills. They get mentored with someone, either Canadian or someone else in the workforce who can help them get connected to an employer that could hire them for their higher skills. Newcomer Center of Peel, the Rural Employment Initiative, a lot of newcomers that come here come from rural areas. However, when they get here, they tend to get funneled in places like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, some of our most urbanized areas. Many of those folks would prefer to be in a rural area. So the Rural Employment Initiatives helps connect folks that are in the Toronto area and Peel to opportunities in rural areas. So those are just a couple of examples. One of the first things we did after we got the roundtables going was we held a hiring event in London. Now, what we heard right off the bat was that employers had run a number of job fairs, a number of folks in local communities had run job fairs in their local communities, and they just weren't seeing, they were essentially recycling the same folks. We weren't seeing some new blood in the job market. So we offered to take the employers down to London and give them an opportunity to see if there was opportunities in London for hiring. So back in January of 2018, we brought a number of employers, and rather than just have a booths set up, what we did was we tried to take them as far down the hiring process as possible. So anyone interested in a job was brought in, their skills were assessed by some Fanshawe student volunteers, and then they were given an interview with an employer. So they got as far down the process as they could. Feedback from employers was great. However, when it came time to actually get the hire, there was a lot of trouble just getting people into the jobs. Following that, the original plan was to hire, of course, with London, it tends to make more sense for folks in the south side of the county. We originally thought that we would look into running a similar event in Kitchener-Waterloo for folks on the north end of the county. However, after the experience we had in London and the feedback we got from employers, we decided that it probably wasn't going to be worth it. That's not to say we would never do that, but at this point, the employers gave us the feedback that they didn't feel it would be worth it at this time. We also did a recruiting event at a London mosque. So on a Friday, immediately before prayers, we had 3 employers down in the London mosque, and just had an opportunity as people were filing in and filing out to meet some of the employers, get to know some of the lifestyle and opportunities here in Huron County, and just to see if that would be something. There were a number of interviews held as a result of it, but unfortunately it didn't work out that many hires. So we really tried to try a number of different things to see what kind of effect we can have. One of the themes you may have noticed is we've really been trying to make our employers more competitive with attracting immigrants and newcomers. So one of the ways that we decided to help, or we were asked to help, was by running cultural awareness workshops. And what this was to do, whenever you bring in a new culture, new ways of doing things into a workplace, you can sometimes have some tension if things aren't dealt with right off the cuff. So these cultural awareness workshops were delivered to help supervisors and shift leaders prepare for some of the issues that can happen when you bring new cultures into your workplace. So it taught those leaders how to deal with issues that can arise from folks that are new to Canada, from a different culture, integrating into their workplace. Along that line, we also created something called an employer toolkit. So this is just a document that has a number of different best practices of ways to help integrate immigrants and newcomers into your workplace, as well as a number of case studies, so other companies that have tried it, been successful, what they did, as well as a number of resources to get in touch with, people to contact if you're having problems, whether that's having cultural, translation, any of those needs that may arise. Now, most applicable to this, to where we are today, the Northern Huron County Acute Worker Shortage Community Meetings that we've been holding, that both Mayor, Reed Bailey and Mayor Morris Turnberry and Jamie Huffer as well have been attending and really helping out with. This was an opportunity. We've been contacted by Westcast as well as Brightspan, Gailey sort of saying that they had an urgent need for employees. And what we did was we just set up an opportunity to sit down with some great community leaders and take some steps to see how we could work together to address this acute worker shortage. So we worked together, we put out a press release. Reed Bailey had done some excellent work connecting the employers up with some agencies to help out, which is all of those things have, we've been given the feedback that they've been of immense help to really turning things around to the point where I think they're optimistic that they'll be able to get up to full strength and be able to get their line up to full production. So it was, again, just another, the connections that came out of the roundtable were what helped us work together to make that happen. So with that, I guess I'll open it up to questions, and I know that there's a number that you'll probably want to ask, and I will do my very best to answer as best as I possibly can. Thank you very much.
I'll open up to the floor now. Any questions? Go ahead, Kevin.
I guess further to the discussion that you and I had at the economic development meeting about how the labor entrance curriculum is so high that for them requiring skilled trades or skilled people coming in, there seemed to be a divide between just laborers and production line workers having to be able to access any of the federal and provincial programs that will bring them in there. Did you happen to come across anything that might help in that area since we talked?
Through you, Sri. No, I haven't had a chance since we talked. It's been pretty. I guess it was last Thursday that we were chatting. But that being said, I think one of the programs that we're most excited about happening right now is just about to start at Central Huron High School with, is just underway through the technical training group. This is a program that will start doing pre-apprenticeship training for welders and metal fabricators at Central Huron High School. The nice thing about this is that funding brought in money to buy equipment that not only those pre-apprentice candidates will be able to use after school, but also that students at the school currently will be able to use as well to help stimulate interest in skilled trades and get them ready for work in that environment.
If I could just, go ahead, Chris, first.
You should.
Yeah, go ahead.
Figure Reeve. Yeah, just wondering what the wall is like. You said 4.4 something unemployment here. What's it down in London and in Kitchener?
Through you, Reeve, I'm unsure of London and Kitchener. The province as a whole, though, is sitting at approximately 6.1. So slightly at about, we're generally 1.5% to 2% under the provincial rate. Generally speaking, Kitchener and London are typically higher, but not quite at the provincial rate, but I couldn't quote it to you off the top of my head.
So I just want to just shout out there a few things that are going on too, and a few things that are involved. In our roundtable discussions, we've discovered that the biggest problem is there's no place to live. So what we've been trying to do, or what the manufacturers have been trying to do, is to bus people in, and as Chris said, it's a long drive from London, then put a 12-hour day in the foundry, and then a long day back home. So they're having quite a turnover. They were down to only 1 or 2 people actually applying for work there, and after the county, Chris, got involved in this, and the township, and kudos to Dwayne, because Dwayne's been a driver on this, we have up to 40 people now. So, it's a week, I believe, I can't remember if it's a week or a month now at the foundry, that people are actually coming and applying for the jobs and showing up for work. They still have the revolving door. After a little while, it's just too long, so it keeps coming back to we don't have housing. And this is not just North Huron, this is an Ontario-wide problem. We're just getting hit hard with it right now. So we are trying to develop the Hutton Heights, and we've talked about a few other ideas that are in the hopper right now, which we're not gonna bring forward. But we are really working as a team, the Morris Cherryberry, North Huron, and the county. And the fact being that there's only one of the 4 factories involved, and that would be the Westcast, that's actually in North Huron. You have Royal Homes that'll be joining with us, you have Brightspan, and you have Daily. They're not in our territory, but we're all pulling together. This is something we see that we have to do, and I'm so happy that we can work together on it. The housing is a big issue, and the time it takes to get housing going, and so we're all aware of that. Maybe Chris might want to follow up a bit on it, but we are working towards that as hard as we can. This council, as of the last council meeting, pushed forward the Hutton Heights program, because we all know and understand this is a big issue. I don't know if you want to follow up further on that, Chris?
Through Mr. Riva, first, I think kudos to North Huron and the council for taking those steps to develop Hutton Heights. I think it's a bold step and one that will pay dividends. So I think it's an excellent path that you're going down right now. At it countywide, we've just recently taken a report to county council with, I believe, 8 different initiatives to explore to try and increase the supply of housing countywide. If I remember correctly, I believe initiatives 2 through 8 were approved to explore further. So work is being done to try to increase that supply. But again, I think the work at the municipal level, the type of work that you're doing will pay dividends down the road to help address that housing issue.
Thank you. Further questions? Go ahead, Chuck.
This comment is more of just an overall general comment about the work for it. We've seen it in cyclical nature in the fact that skilled trades was 25 years ago was the end all and be all. Every newscast, everybody was promoting skilled trades, and it got flooded the market with skilled trades, and then there was nothing for 20 years, and now we're all going back to the same discussion. The question is, the comment I have is that this is not that is not a municipal issue. That is a provincial issue. That is an issue that we need to get some clarity as from the ministry as how they're seeing the job market and what are they using in order to establish which markets they think that the employers need. Because I would argue that we do things such in a cyclical nature where we try to flood a market, and then all of a sudden everybody goes to that market, and it actually goes too much, and you can't get all those people, so you get them all trained, and then they can't get employment in the market that they want to be into. So, you know, from our perspective as a municipality, housing is an issue that we have solely a responsibility to figure out how in a county and how we do that. How we advertise which jobs need to be available, really, and what training, that to me is a provincial mandate that needs to be looked at more at the provincial level and provided to the colleges and universities and the high schools to say, here's the market where we are. Do the best in your knowledge about how you fill that market, but understand, don't flood the market with a bunch of things with skilled trades or whatever the case, or in 20 years we're going to be doing the same thing again. We're all going to there's gonna be a lack of skilled trades, and we're all gonna send them to school again. And it's gonna be continually a cyclical process. So, you know, to me, I think that's the part that we need to get the ministry involved to provide some guidance, clear guidance as it relates to the job force and the workforce and employers. Because that's the idea. I think we're just going in a cyclical manner, and it just becomes that every 20-year cycle, we're trying to fight up against a wall that we're already behind. And that's just a comment, but I think it's more of a provincial mandate than a municipal mandate as it relates to training or trying to find people for workforce. It seems to me that we're getting sucked into the vortex of that, and it's a never-ending battle that we ultimately can't win unless we're gonna force people to train to something that they're not interested in.
It's just a comment. Anybody else comments, questions, thoughts for Chris? While we got him here on the hot seat. Seeing none, Chris, I want to thank you very much for making the trip. We appreciate you bringing an update of what's going on. We know these are trying times. Like I said, Dwayne and I sure sat in, I believe, your first meeting down here and got quite an eye-opening. As I've said many times when I was on council last time, it was a matter of there didn't seem to be any jobs in the area. Now it's like we have so many jobs that the West Cast itself is short 50 people a day. 50 people a day they're short, which means if it's a worldwide company, if they can't manufacture that here in North Huron, folks, it's gonna go to China, or it might go to Mexico, so we have to do something about this situation, work together on it. So thank you again, Chris, I appreciate that.
Many thanks, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank
Okay. 6.2, Stephen Hill, Clean Yards Bylaw. Steve.
Okay. I was asked by councillor to be a delegation to address the municipality's responsibility and liability regarding municipal infrastructure. Earlier this year, I started a work the rule strike, much like town staff is doing. This was dubbed the Boulevard boycott and later turned into the butterfly boycott as this section became naturalized, much like our community trail. I find it absurd to expect private property owners to maintain municipal land to a higher standard than paid staff. I also find it insulting you don't maintain our infrastructure to the same standards as you expect private landowners. There are taller weeds in our sidewalks and streets than the wildflowers that were on the boulevard. I refuse to cut the grass on municipal property adjacent to mine until council and staff agree to clear all sidewalks. Simply put, I will cut your grass when you agree to clear your sidewalks. This has always been an unwritten social contract to which the municipality is in breach. Every year it seems one less section of sidewalk was cleared. At one point, an apathetic council gave in to staff and said they didn't have to do all the sidewalks, but they had to do at least one sidewalk on every street. This led to clearing of one sidewalk, turning around at the end of the street, then driving by the other block sidewalk. This code has saved no time or money. One complaint of poor service on a section of street would result in the entire street being neglected out of spite. Now virtually no north-south streets are cleared, and Josephine Street is no longer fully cleared. Town staff refused to clear both sides of Hannah Bridge, forcing those on Bristol Terrace to cross the highway just to get uptown. I won't go into the benefits of allowing our community to be connected in the winter and releasing those with mobility issues from virtual house arrest in the winter, or why you should stop forcing children to walk in traffic to get to school, as it seemed too obvious to highlight. Council has always claimed that they couldn't clear the sidewalks because it would raise taxes. During my drive around town with former head of Public Works, Kelly Church, he revealed that council had never asked what it cost to clear the sidewalks, nor did his predecessor, Ralph Campbell, leave any info. Kelly Church himself had no idea what it cost. I've asked the previous reeve numerous times for the cost of clearing sidewalks. He never acquired or attempted to acquire that data. Under threat of a Freedom of Information request, I was able to get that information from staff to see what it costs to clear our sidewalks. According to Sean McGee, it takes 285 hours at a cost of $20,000 to clear the sidewalks. That figure does not include equipment depreciation. That works out to $70 an hour. North Huron clearly has the manpower, as they've been caught on video clearing their own private property with town equipment while neglecting community safety zones meters away. North Huron has a budget of about $12 million a year. Another $20,000 to clear the remaining sidewalks is insignificant. If council can spend $15,000 to $20,000 on TV and installation, you can afford to clear our sidewalks. If you have TV money, you have sidewalk money. If you have $35,000 for someone to spend a couple hours to refresh or rearrange the North Huron website, you have sidewalk money. It's time for council to stand up to staff and demand our infrastructure be fully maintained. Your role as council is to represent the public and to hold senior staff to account. This is not my opinion, but law. Section 224 of the Municipal Act clearly states this. As for the invoice for $135 for a contractor to spend 3 minutes cutting your grass on your boulevard, the notice clearly stated the owner would get the bill. Town staff clearly had the time to cut the grass themselves, as new video and photos prove. I was not allowed to appeal or question this order, nor granted a meeting with my representative on council until after the order was executed. Council and staff were notified I was going to appeal the order, yet this did not trigger a stay and the order was immediately executed. These are the telltale signs of a dictatorship. If the council does not rescind this $135 invoice in the Clean Yards bylaw and agree to clear all sidewalks and trails in Windham, we will be going to court where the genesis of this new absolute law will be exposed and the historical pattern of abuse by town staff that led up to this will be exposed. I am confident North Huron will lose in court and there will be great expense to everyone involved. However, I do like the idea of questioning each of you individually on the witness stand along with the one who allegedly filed the complaint. In Baumgardena versus the City of Vaughan, it was ruled that a municipality cannot transfer liability or responsibility for municipal property. This was upheld in the Ontario Court of Appeal. If you want to win, you'll have to go to the Supreme Court of Canada to overrule that precedent. If we go to court, your position will be that town staff do not have to maintain our infrastructure, despite it being required by the Highway Traffic Act and the Municipal Act. How much taxpayer money are you willing to spend so town staff don't have to uphold the law and clear our sidewalks? I guarantee you that it'd be far cheaper to clear the sidewalks. We all pay for the trackless machine, we should all reap the benefits of it, and no longer have to watch it drive by block sidewalks. You know you can't pick and choose what roads to plow in the winter. Why do you think you have the ability to pick and choose which sidewalks? You can no longer allow town staff to tell you what to do. It must be the other way around. Tonight, I'm asking council to accept responsibility for our infrastructure by rescinding this invoice along with the Clean Yards bylaw and commit to clearing all sidewalks in Windham during the winter.
Can I have a motion to accept for information? I have Kevin. I have Chris. All in favor? Carries. Thank you, Stephen.
Any questions?
Nope, I'm running this show. Come on.
The last gentleman
North
went
Huron.
over the 10 minutes by, you had about 21 minutes. And you're still refusing to discuss this. You literally laughed this off during your council term, 2010 and 2014.
Stephen, you've threatened to take us to court. You tell us you're taking to court. We'll do our talking in court. You've threatened that today in open council. You've threatened it on your website. We're done talking.
You refuse to discuss the
No,
sidewalk
we're
issue.
gonna talk in court when you take us to court, and I will talk all you like, and you can.
Council here, my
We're done.
representatives don't have a say.
We're done.
I'm not allowed to discuss this with
We're
my
done.
representatives. You want even clean handed bridge this winter? Well, thank
I
you for
adjourn this meeting for
this
right
frank
now.
discussion there, Mr. Bailey.
You're welcome, Stephen. Steve.
This is your decision and not council's decision.
See you in court.
None of
No,
council
no,
gets to
no, no,
vote
no.
on this at all.
We're done. You threatened us with court, you told us you're taking us to court, we'll
I
talk in
didn't say I was
court.
taking
Way you
you to
go.
court. You weren't paying attention.
Okay.
If you don't rescind this bylaw
Okay,
and invoice,
we're gonna call the police to have them escorted out? We can. 7.1.1, North Huron Municipal Website RFP. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receive a report of the clerk dated September 16, 2019 regarding the North Huron Municipal Website RFP for information purposes. And further, the council accept the North Huron Economic Development Committee's recommendations to reallocate $35,000 in the economic development budget to pay for the North Huron Municipal Website. And further, that council accepts the North Huron Economic Development Committee's recommendation to establish and allot funds to the website reserve account as part of the annual budget process beginning in 2020. And further, the council directs the staff to issue a request for proposal for the new website. And further, that the director of finance be authorized to record the necessary changes in the economic development budget. Carson, would you like to speak to this before I call it you?
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. So, as council will have seen in the report, the North Huron website is in need of replacement. The company that designed the website originally is no longer in existence, and as such, staff no longer have the ability to properly maintain all of the different parts to the website. And so over time, this has resulted in concerns being expressed by constituents, potential businesses looking to locate in North Huron, as well as staff attempting to use and update the website. So this concern was previously acknowledged by the Economic Development Committee and Council, and as a result, a rural economic development grant application was submitted to AMAFRA to help pay for the website. However, this application was denied. So resultantly, since then, staff have been investigating and discussing different funding options in order to fund this new municipal website. After a year-to-date review of the economic development budget has been completed, when the projected costs for the balance of 2019 are taken into consideration, the economic development budget is showing a surplus, and specifically in the ECDEV budget, the advertising and promotions, special projects, and red grant allocations are showing a surplus of approximately $40,000. So it's recommended that the new website be funded from this surplus. So with the importance of being accountable and transparent at the forefront of municipal government and its operations, the replacement of the township's website is prudent in order to ensure that residents can receive correct and timely information. Additionally, goal number 1 of the current North Huron strategic plan states that North Huron is attractive to new business and residents, and it's strongly believed that the website is a cornerstone to marketing and branding the township of North Huron in order to build strong communications between stakeholders, visitors, and residents. So resultantly, the North Huron Economic Development Committee would like council to accept the committee's recommendation to reallocate $35,000 in the ECDEV budget to pay for a new municipal website, and to accept the committee's recommendation to establish and allocate funds to a website reserve account as part of the annual budget process beginning in 2022, so that future website costs are not being drawn in large amounts from the ECDEV committee budget. And finally, to accept, the ECDEV committee would like council to accept their recommendation to direct staff to issue a RFP for a new website.
Do I have a mover? I have Kevin. Do I have a second? I have Anita. Shall we have a conversation? Questions or comments, concerns? Go ahead, Kevin.
I know it's probably too early in the process, haven't even chosen yet, but is there roughly a time frame to when it might be up and running, once it's passed?
Through you,
How long
Your
the
Worship.
process is that?
Through Your Worship, approximate timeline would be a year. Maybe less.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Trevor.
In this RFP, are we indicating, what data we would, I guess my question is, are we just taking the existing data that's on the website and just transferring it to a new website? My question would be to ensure that we're reviewing municipalities in the region to explain transparency and all that stuff, and providing those areas of where we lack, and get those on the website. I'm seeing a lot of shaking of heads that we're not just transitioning the work that we have on our current website into the new one, but I want to make sure that was at the forefront.
We're gonna let Carson,
Yeah, so through you, Your Worship. So basically, once the RFP is issued, what we had discussed was to develop a committee of the people who are most using the website and senior management, and kind of develop a committee to kind of help move this process along, and that would part of that would be looking through all the current information on the website, make sure that we're having the most up-to-date information in there, so we're not just transferring that old information and putting it on the new one. So anything that's on our current one is gonna be looked at, and we'll see what needs to be on the new one kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Vicki, go ahead.
Through your worship, we'll also be looking at other municipalities to see what they have and what they're offering, and as a group making that decision, because there's a variety of information that different municipalities provide and different ways that they provide it, so we'll try to do it in the best way possible and the most user-friendly way for people to access the information and find information. Because right now we find it's difficult to find things on there, so we want it to be really easy for people to use.
Christopher?
Yeah, I'm not against pulling funds out of the economic development budget. I'm hoping that down the road, we're not gonna be asked to refill it again. So, are we
We'll
leaving
have-
it empty, see where I'm going with this?
No, we'll have those during budget discussions, we'll have those conversations. When we had to talk about this at the Economic Development Committee, it was felt this was economic development, this is helping us, so people could find out about ourselves. So that's why we decided to move forward with that. It was proper use of the present budget would be the way to put it. Okay. Good, Trev?
But in to answer Chris's question, part of the motion basically states that we're gonna set up a reserve account for the website. So basically, the intention is in the budget that money will go into that reserve account, and then as maintenance needs to be done to that money would be pulled from that reserve account in order to maintain if there was a significant amount of money that needed to be done for the website going forward.
Was there any thought of using some monies from the modernization grant?
We'll have, I'm not sure about that, who could I throw that out to? It'll be part of our budget deliberations again. Carson, could you answer that? I'm not sure which.
So basically, with the modernization fund so far, council has allocated the 15,000 for strategic planning and, or the 15,000 for the live streaming technology, and then the 6,000 for the strategic planning. So it was, council received 532,000 to be allocated. So what council wants to do with that is up to them.
Christopher, sorry, thank you, Carson. Christopher, sorry, I just wasn't thinking there. No, I'm very determined that that money's sitting and that will not get wasted on trucks or anything else. It's going to help us with our Hutton Heights and develop new tax revenues. I just want to stay solid on that one. We did stray a bit for 10 or 15,000, I'm fine, but I don't want to start eating away at that. Again, that'll be part of the deliberations we'll be having later and where that's going to be used, but I'm pretty sure we're going to need it for the fire and sewer system in Hutton Heights. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. All in favor? Carries. 7.2 with 7.2.1, that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finance dated September 16th, 2019, regarding tax refunds under Section 357(1)(DI) of the Municipal Act in the amount of $1,560.60. And further, that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby approve adjustments to the collector's roll as recommended by the Director of Finance in this report dated September 16, 2019. Donna, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Reed. So these applications come forward as received, and we send them to the MPAC office for their recommendation for an assessment adjustment. This is another example where this building located on this lot was torn down, and so then therefore the assessment associated with the building is being refunded through this application. So the net result is a refund to the property tax owner in the amount of $1,560.60, and that is shared amongst the municipal, county, and education portions. As per these applications, if the property owner or applicant is in the council chambers, they are to be asked to, if they wish to address council on this application. The owner was notified that the information would be brought forward at tonight's meeting, and that staff is recommending that the application be approved. So the property owner is Mr. Hawkins, and I don't know Mr. Hawkins personally, so I don't know if he is in the audience this evening. Seeing none, then I take it that he's not here, and so then I'm asking council to approve this recommendation regarding this building that is now being torn down.
Thank you, Don. Do I have a mover?
I'll move it.
Trevor, and I have Paul seconding. Questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Passes. 7.2.2, delegation of authority, tax extension agreements. That the Council Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the Director of Finance Treasurer dated September 16, 2019 regarding delegation of authority for tax extension agreements for information purposes. And further, the Council Township of North Huron hereby approves delegating authority to the Director of Finance / Treasurer to enter into the tax extension agreements. And further, that the Council Township of North Huron hereby approves an exception to section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow bylaw number 89-2019 to be passed at the September 16, 2019 council meeting. Donna, would you please speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Reeve. So under the Bill 68 legislation that came into effect, council now has the authority to delegate their authority to enter into tax extension agreements to staff. So it's a very rare occurrence that this happens, but under the way the legislation was currently, that council had to pass a bylaw, and you can only pass a bylaw at a council meeting. So in many of these situations that the impending tax sale, the last date for the cancellation price to be paid for tax sale doesn't coincide with a council meeting, and therefore the bylaw couldn't be passed. So the legislation was changed to allow that authority to be delegated to staff if that situation did arise. So fortunately, we haven't had this situation. We do have some properties right now that are close to tax sales, so I do want to put this in place in order to avoid, if at all possible, having the property sold under that legislation. So the tax sale process is very burdensome, and this will help somewhat. And of course, the sooner that we can collect our taxes, the better it is for our cash flow. So does council have any questions that they would like to have further answered on this legislation?
Any questions? Do I have a mover? I have Paul, and I have a seconder, Trevor. Last chance for questions or comments. Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. Seven point 6.1 North Huron 2019-99 Drainage Superintendent Report for Charter Municipal Drains. Kirk, would you like to speak to that one?
Sure. Great, Billy. In late spring, I did bring a report to council with respect to the Charter Municipal Drain. A notice for drain improvement and repair was submitted by Von Toll. At that time, I did provide council with a copy of that notice, as well as pictures of the overland flow and the erosion that was taking place. And there was a fairly large berm on the property line that was basically broke through by the volume of water on the east side. So we've received comments back from the Conservation Authority now, indicating that permits are required, but they have no concern. The drain does affect concession 2, lot 37, 38, 39, and concession 3, lots 37, 38, 39. So 6 parcels of land, but really only 4 landowners. At this time, we're in the position to appoint an engineer, and I do have my recommendation attached to my report.
You can read the motion and then we'll have a conversation. So that North Huron, that the Council Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the from the Drainage Superintendent dated September 16, 2019 regarding the Charter Municipal Drain. And further, that council appoints R.J. Burnside and Associates Limited to prepare a report to fulfill the requirements under section 78 of the Drainage Act as required by Von Toll in the notice of request for drain improvement. Do I have a mover? I have Rick. Do I have a seconder? I have Kevin. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Chris.
So you read, Kirk, is there a timeline, like, could it be completed this year yet?
It could be. It is a closed tile system. So I think we have two options. One would be to increase the size of the tile, only if we can get adequate coverage on top of the tile. And if not, we would either twin it or maybe put 3 tiles side by side and a couple of catch basins up on the fence line. So that can still be done this year if we can get a contractor that can plow that in. If not, Vaughn would like it completed in the spring before the crops get in.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. 7.8.1, Human Resources Policy Review and Update. Dwayne, I'll let you talk about it first, and then Sorry, Joel, I'll read it first, let me know what's going on. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives a report of the clerk and the CAO dated September 16, 2019 regarding a human resources policy review and update for information purposes. And further, that the council authorizes reallocation of $15,000 from the CAO salary reserves to help pay for the human resource policy review and update. And further, that the council award the human resources policy review and update exercise to Warden Updegrove. And further, that the Director of Finance be authorized to record the necessary changes to the budget. Dwayne, will you speak to that now? Oh, sorry, I forgot, Trevor, sorry.
I just wanted to mention, as an employee of Warden Updegrove, I will not be partaking in any conversation or discussion as it relates to this conversation.
Thank you, accepted.
Thanks for your feelings. So the township's North Huron's resource policies have been identified as a priority in terms of we need to do some work on those policies. The policies currently apply to full-time staff only, and essentially what we're looking for is a set of policies that would apply to all staff, full-time and part-time. In the absence of having a human resource specialist on staff, we're looking for, and those policies have not been routinely updated. They have been updated, but not routinely updated. And what we're looking to do is look at those existing policies and do a thorough review just to ensure that we're in compliance with the legislation. So to that end, we solicited proposals from 3 different HR firms to perform a review and identify any updates that are needed to the policies. 3 firms made submissions. We have reviewed those submissions, and as Rick has indicated in the recommendation, it's recommended that Warden Updegrove be awarded that work. In terms of the financing of the review, back in 2014, the CAO of the time, there was a departure, and the unspent salary of that position was put into reserves, and it's been sitting in reserves now for about 5 years, with no earmarked project for those funds. In light of that was an HR, money went into reserves because of HR, and this is an HR review. It's recommended that portion of those funds be reallocated to finance the review of the human resource policies.
Do I have a mover? Have Anita, seconder? Rick? Questions, conversation, or concern? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I see that there's a staff person that's possibly interested in partaking with this study. Would that mean that that person would have enough experience to carry this on in the future? Like updates and what have you?
Not from, just in terms of the staff member has an interest in human resources, but does not have the qualifications, but has expressed an interest to learn more about the field. So in terms of the future for that, we'll have to wait and see.
Paul, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was wondering, the gentleman or person from staff, the cost of, is he not going to be needed for doing other jobs? I'm just curious, because that, I think it's 15,000 to go to Warden Upgrove. The hours that he puts in there, is there lots of free time?
Dwayne, I'm gonna let you handle that.
Yeah, essentially, it's part of the succession plan that we're working on, so this individual is, their responsibilities are solely being transitioned over, so this individual, will be available, I'm not suggesting great quantities of time, which is why I think it'd be a nice fit in here in terms of this individual will be involved, will be, helping us through that process. But in terms of the time commitment, certainly not looking that it would interfere with the duties
Right.
and responsibilities.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Anita.
Is this a one-time cost of 15,000 and then every year it needs to be reviewed, or how often do we have to review the cost?
I think it's, the policies themselves should need to be updated on a regular routine basis. So what we'll consider doing in the 2020 budget is we'll put some money into the budget, into reserve, and then we'll, similar to the website, we'll slowly build a reserve, and then, as we need to do these updates, then we'll draw from those funds. It's partly dependent on the legislation, so as the province changes their legislation, then we have to change our legislation. We don't know, we have no crystal ball, I guess, in terms of what they're going to do, but it's expected that we will have to update the policies in the future.
But this is a one-time update, and then it won't be 15,000 every year.
It should not, no.
So this, if I may comment, so this is just to keep up with provincial federal laws. That we're not dreaming anything up, we're just trying to keep everything, so if we have a problem, it's taken care of.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, the other consideration is when we look at our existing policies, there's some areas that could be clearer. We believe we know what the intent is, but through this process that'll become more clear, both for senior management team and for the employees themselves.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Kevin.
Would this position be something that could be, I'm not gonna say outsourced, but, how we share building inspectors, we share, our drainage and that. To me, human resources a flat policy across the province as far as how municipalities handle human resources, whether that's something in a shared service. Since we don't have anyone that is qualified.
Speaking on my own behalf, I don't mind entering that into part of the conversations we're having with Morris Turnbury. That's a good idea, yeah. Anyone else? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. 7.8.2, you're back with us. 7.8.2, update to 2019 pay grid that the Council Township of North Huron hereby receive a report of the CEO dated September 16, 2019 regarding updates to the 2019 pay grid. And further, the council approves the attached job descriptions for recreation administrative assistants and recreation supervisory position. And further, that the council adopts bylaw 90-2019, which is contained in the bylaw section of the agenda. And further, the council approves the extension of section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow bylaw 90-2019, being a bylaw to repeal and adopt an updated pay grid for municipal employees and the corporation of the township of North Huron be passed at the September 16, 2019 council meeting. Do I have a mover? Sorry, I'm gonna get Dwayne to speak to this first.
So essentially, pay grid, which is attached to the report for council's information. And this is a pay grid that is used when we are hiring and looking at staffing within municipality. So back in 2013, there was an exercise undertaken whereby what we want to do is ensure that we remain competitive and attractive as an employer. So back in 2013, this exercise was undertaken, and at that time, there was a philosophy adopted that what we want to be is in the medium of the market. We don't want to be the highest necessarily paid employer, but at the same time, we don't want to be the lowest because we want to be able to attract and retain. So we want to pay fair. In 2018, every 5 years, the pay equity is to be reviewed. In 2017, the process was initiated and a consultant was hired. And through that process, we adopted, when I say we, the previous council adopted a new pay grid that achieves pay equity compliance back in 2018, so last spring. Last fall, November, we came to the realization that there were 3 positions that, when we went through the pay equity exercise, that had not been reviewed and evaluated and banded, we refer to. So back last fall, those positions, job descriptions were developed. The positions existed within the municipality. We needed to develop the job descriptions and we need to have those positions banded and placed on the pay grid. Those positions were developed and adopted, and they've been incorporated into the pay grid. This past summer, the Director of Recreation and Community Services brought forward 2 job descriptions for reconsideration. One being the Recreation Administrative Assistant position, and the other being the Recreation Supervisor position. And one of the reasons it was brought forward was there was a perceived inequity within the pay grid in terms of where those positions were banding based on the job descriptions that existed versus how other similar positions were banding within the municipality. So there was a perceived inequity. So as a result of that, those 2 job descriptions were reviewed and they were sent to the pay equity consultant for banding, and the pay equity consultant agreed that those positions should be placed into a different band. And that's is what you have attached to your report. In terms of the placement of those positions on the new pay band, it does result in an increase in the salary of the Recreation Department from the approved 2019 budget. It does result in an over expenditure of approximately $3,400 in full-time recreation wages and $1,000 in full-time benefits. But through from now until the end of December, those are not significant dollar amounts in terms of about $4,000 to $5,000. The Director of Recreation and Community Services will investigate and monitor ways to minimize the financial impact on that recreation budget. So we'll do our best to keep that as low as we can.
Thank you, Dwayne. Do I have a mover? Trevor, do I have a seconder? Chris, questions or comments? I'm gonna let Chris, sorry, Chris first, and then you, Kevin, sorry.
I'll get the darts first. You take over. I have a couple of thoughts, and please forgive me, but these came to me. I couldn't sleep Friday night, and I shouldn't have opened it up Friday. That's what happened. But I thought that it should have been split between the job descriptions. I thought that should have been a separate one. I know they're connected, but I just felt more comfortable if they were a separate issue, separate motion. When I saw the differences between step 1, step 5, first of all, I don't know what constitutes a step change, and I don't know where our staff fall. That would help us, because there's a shock here. I mean, a big shock. If you go from step 1 to step 5, you're talking $374,000 difference. And then I get thinking, who's going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? You know, services are going to get affected, because we can't keep raising taxes, you know, all the time. So I know those are just my first thoughts, okay? guess that's where it is. Mostly, you know, I respect the fact that we need to have a good pay scale to keep people. Nothing worse than losing a good person. But in the same, it's a balance. We gotta keep people, and we gotta pay for it. It's difficult.
Don, I'm wondering if you could answer those questions on how the pay grid works and.
Well, yeah, so it's $3,400 to move from the one band up into the next band for the two particular positions. So, sorry, I'm not sure where you got the.
I added everybody, I added the difference between step 1, step 5. I have no idea where individuals
So
fall.
you're looking at
It's
all
just a
staff.
very loose,
Yeah,
it
can
was
I
a
just,
loose.
can I just
Oh, okay.
interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
So what
Sure.
would be good, Don, is I think if you had explained the pay grid and how you go from, and what's involved in going from one step to another. And for me, Christian, I did this same conversation 5 years ago, so
Yeah.
it's very
It
interesting.
comes up, can't
Yes,
help it.
yes. So I understand your frustration, and Donna, if you could, or maybe if you can't, maybe Dwayne will follow up.
Yeah, and Dwayne can add to that. So, through the pay equity process, each job is what we call banded. So I just have to get my bands up here. Yes, and so those, as Dwayne outlined in his report, that was all, the whole pay equity exercise was conducted by an outside third-party contractor. So, as I said, each job description is banded on the band, and there's certain criteria that you have to meet to fit into that band. So all the job positions are listed that fit into each of those bands, and then there's a number of steps in each of those bands. So a person has to go through a satisfactory performance review to move what we call a step on the, within your band. So do you see there how you move across the steps? Yeah, so you have to go through either a performance review, or there has to be some sort of an action taken in order to achieve a new step movement across your banding. So that, and Dwayne, I don't know if you want to add to that?
Vicki?
Just through your worship, just to further clarify that, it's moving across, not down. If you are change up or down, that means your job's been totally reclassified. You'd have to take on a significant amount of new responsibilities in order for it to move up or lose a lot
Like
of.
your 2 job descriptions.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
No, I understand that one. That's good. Yeah. So what about art, sorry.
I'm just gonna let
Yes.
Trevor answer, he just, then I'll come back to you, Chris.
No, I think the intention is that the band is grouping similar jobs as a band, and then each band has a threshold of limit of what you wanna pay that band. And everybody who starts that band generally starts at around 80% of what their total pay could be after a successful number of years of performance evaluations. So at the end of the day, at step 5, once you get to step 5, you can't, according to our band, you're not gonna go any higher than step 5, other than cost of living. That's the highest you can go, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The discussion on most cases where it relates to coming to council is when a job has been banded in the inappropriate band. So for whatever reason, that job, those 2 job descriptions, when they were reviewed originally, for whatever reason, were banded in band 4, but they should have been banded in band 5 with the rest of the administrators that we have in the municipality. So at the end of the day, should that have been banded in 5 back when we did pay equity? Absolutely. But what sounds like it happened is those 2 jobs weren't reviewed at that time with staff or whoever the case may be, and they got missed for whatever reason. So I hope that clarifies the question about how or where you start on the band and where you could end up. But it's all based on performance review and based on your supervisor.
So can I just ask a question then, probably a question you're about to ask, Chris? So the way that was spoken to me then, you don't just automatically go from one pay raise to another. It's not like working at the foundry where after a year and a half you get $3 more, and after 2 years you get benefits. This is banded. You gotta prove that you've done a good job to your CEO, your boss, who I presume will take it back to us, whether he has to or not, I'm not sure, because he is our only employee. It's up to him to run the town. So it's not like when you look at that, it's not like an ordinary job where you just go, I started here and then I ended up here 20 years later. You have to take further education, you have to keep up with the policies, you have to prove that you've been performing to the ability that's needed for that job. Do I have that right, Don?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Chris, you had another
Yeah,
question?
okay, I'm good with that, thank you for the clarification. So, I think a lot of us would like to know where our staff are generally. You mentioned if we're halfway, good, you know, I totally agree with that. So where are we? It would help me, if everybody's one, I'm in trouble when I go home. If everybody's, you know, halfway, I know what the salaries are in the budget, percentage-wise. You know, we're living with that, and that's good. But, you know, I wanna know if everyone's got a huge movement to the top end, then it's gonna really affect the percentage of the salary to the budget. And it's gonna consequently affect the tax rate. So if you could just sort of give me a nice little spot, then maybe I'll feel good, feel better.
Well, just want to clarify, just in terms of when we talk about meeting the 50%, it's based on the market, right? So in terms of other municipalities of our size and of the services that we offer, that there are municipalities of our size that are paying more than we are, but there's municipalities that are paying less than we are for our size and for the services that we offer. So that's reflected, I think it's important to distinguish in the pay band, that these pay rates that are in here are the median market. You know, if as a municipality you want to pay more, you can go to 60%, 70%, 80%, or you can go the other way. Bearing in mind in terms of your ability to retain and attract your staff. You know, if you have an individual who's qualified for the position, and you have two municipalities, and they have their choice between municipalities, and this one's paying X and that one's paying Y, then they're going to make their decision based on that, right? So our pay band, if you go to other municipalities, their pay band won't be the same as ours. They could pay more, they could pay less. Right? So I just want to clarify that. So it doesn't mean that everybody in that 1 to 5, that everybody's getting paid at step 3.
No, that's my initial thinking, I suppose, because you even said that in your beginning talk. It would be nice if it were in the middle, you said, you reflecting, you know, step, whatever it is, 2.5, step 3. Okay, I just, you know, where are our staff in this, cannot answer. Is there an answer to that? I know everybody's gonna be, it's gonna be a zigzag, right? Because of everybody's experience and what have you. Is everybody near the center?
So you have staff here, you have staff in North Huron that have been here for in excess of 20 years. So you can pretty much assume that they're going to be at the top end. And then you have new staff that have been here for less than a year.
For Carson?
Right? So you know that they're not going to be most likely at step 5. Right? So it's you're paying for your quality of your staff, right? In terms of the more experience they have, you know, and over time they have developed themselves and they've taken training and education and that sort of thing. So
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Let Kevin talk.
Go ahead, Kev.
My question, through you, Reed. We have a lot of the job descriptions on here that are shared services. Is the step 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 our share of the, or, I'm not sure how that works. The other municipality might be, are we in line with Morris Murray, who we share fire services chief with, are we, or drainage, or the building inspector, is this step 5, their step 5, or, or are we paying our half of this, or?
So my understanding is we actually buy services from Morris Turnway. We don't right now have any joint employees. That
Oh, so
fell through
these
the
are
weight,
not-
yeah.
These are not.
No,
Oh,
we're just buying services from Morris Turnway. They own, it's their employee unless Dwayne, I missed something in our cost.
So that clarifies my question.
Yeah.
Okay, then, we need a, we good?
Yeah,
Mover?
yeah.
Yeah.
Already moving.
Okay, I call the vote then, all in favor? Carries. Okay, correspondence, we have none. Council reports, Reeves activity report. I'd like to apologize right now if anybody think I got a little too harsh with Steve Hill. When you attack my employees, you attack me, and that's all there is to it. There's no way around that, and I will not step off to the side. And I think I tolerated quite a bit there of him talking about uncertainties and unknowns. And I think I was, for an Irishman, pretty good, to be honest with you. But I will not stand by if somebody runs my employees or my staff or my council or my town down. So he threatened us with lawsuits. Let's go at it. So the other thing I'd like to say is we've been really working hard on the employee situation with our employees. I think it's pretty hard to go anywhere here in county right now, whether it's a restaurant or a factory, without seeing help wanted. And it does boil down, whether it's a Huron Manufacturers Association or the county or ourselves, we're realizing we don't have any place to put them. As Trevor's clearly and quite rightfully said, we don't want to end up with 10,000 houses and 4,000 people to live in them in 20 years from now. That won't do us any justice. To find that fine line is beyond my comprehension. I just know that we as a council are doing the best we can do, and we're moving forward for our town. And every building we build in this town pays taxes. So we need them in North Huron, not our neighboring communities, if we're gonna supply water and sewer and different things like that, because it is a cost to our town. That's all I'm gonna say for today. We're having a good run under. We're gonna go on to the council reports. Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, I got to take in the Belgrade Fair, and I was very impressed with it. Thinking back X number of years ago, we had to march too. Our marching was better than theirs, but they had tons of kids there. It was nice seeing, I think it was 5 or 6 schools involved.
I won't take offense by that, by the way.
So we're not talking about those in suits. It was a real super day. The kids were at the Maitland Valley Concert, where they had all the pelts and whatnot. It was just a good day seeing them all involved and just having fun, and I think they learned an awful lot from that. And it's just great to see the volunteerism of the people involved all over the campgrounds. It was great. Just an appreciated day. And it was number 99, next one's 100, so I told a couple of them I expect more next year.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Paul just attended it, I worked there.
I heard
There's
that.
a difference.
Yeah.
Paul to this day has trouble accepting that I worked in the Looney Pen.
Oh.
It was a game for kids, so it was, you spread straw in a pan and you're throwing coins, and then they were given 30 seconds to go find them, and it's pretty good.
I
So-
heard you had a bit of help though.
I did. There was 2 of us, and we got replaced partway through, so it was all right. And we'll be doing it again next year, and it's well received by the little ones.
Anyone else? Seeing none? Comments by members? Is there anything anybody would like to speak to or speak about or ask about or put forward? Go ahead, Chris.
Reeve, I understand what you said about Mr. Hill. Will that enter into, will we enter into any discussion about some of the items mentioned, or, because I'm sitting here, okay, some were not, but some maybe could be dealt with, so I'm just wondering how we would deal with it.
History has taught me if you're going to court, you do your talking in your court. He threatened us with a court case. He did it on his personal blog called the Wingham Free Press, which is owned by Steve Hill. And he has threatened and he has said terrible things about every one of my counselors, including myself and my staff. He said terrible things. And he's the last thing North Huron needs. But having said that, no, we're not going to discuss it, and I should be zipping the lip too. And we will discuss it in court when he sends, I guess it's called the red.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Trevor. Go ahead.
So Reeve, just to comment to that, you know, it is of council's right to make a motion, a notice of motion if they so choose. We made a motion to bring it in for information purposes. So it is council's full right to ask for a notice of motion, to ask for anything clarified or any discussion as it relates to that. I'm just saying, all I'm saying is that is council's decision, and we can make that right so forth. If nothing is brought forth from council, the discussion is for information purposes only, and that's where it lays. And then nothing's discussed and nothing's talked about, and we wait till something else comes around. Other than that, that is what it is.
Yep, so if anybody wants to put a notice of motion forward for the next council meeting, feel free. Okay, guys. No other business, no notice of motion. Speaking of notice of motion, 12.1 bylaw. The bylaw to repeal and replace the North Huron Animal Control bylaw. Do I have a mover? I have Rick. Do I have a seconder? Kevin Squinny. Kevin. All in favor? Carries. 12.2, bylaw number 89, 2019. A bylaw to delegate authorization to the municipal treasurer to authorize the execution of tax arrears extension agreements. Do I have a mover? I have Paul. Do I have a seconder? I have Chris. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 2090, 2019, pardon me. A bylaw to amend bylaw 48-2018, being a bylaw to establish salary ranges for municipal employees of the corporation of the Township of North Huron. Do I have a mover? I have Anita and I have Rick seconding. All in favor? Carries. 13 announcements. The next North Huron Museum Committee meeting will be held on Thursday, September 19th, 2019 at 2 o'clock here in the council chambers. The next Wingham BIA executive meeting will be held Thursday, September 19th, 2019, 6:30 p.m. at the Hot Stove Lounge at the West House Community Complex. The next BIA executive meeting will be held on Thursday, September 26th, 2019 at 6:30 at the Blythe Community Center. A special meeting of council will be held on Friday, September 27th, 2019 at 9 a.m. in North Huron Council Chambers. And the next regular council meeting will be held Monday, October 7th already, 2019 at 6 p.m. at the North Huron Council Chambers. I do not believe we have a closed meeting today. In that case, confirmatory bylaw. A bylaw number 91, 2019, being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron to confirm general provisions, actions of the Council of the Township of North Huron. That's the bylaw 2019 being a bylaw to confirm the September 16th, 2000, okay, already read that one, so we'll just do it once. Do I have a mover? I have Rick, I have Chris seconding, all in favor? Carries. Adjournment, that the Council of the Township of North Huron agrees there being no other further business before council, the meeting is hereby adjourned at 7:20. Do I have a mover? Okay, Rick, Kevin, and Trevor, all in favor? Carries. Yes, sir.
I understood that you were talking about the trailer park this evening.
I didn't have any agenda, no, not tonight, sorry. No, it wasn't on the agenda. Do you have any idea what it's coming up?
It will be coming up in a future.
It is, yes, it is coming up, but not tonight, it wasn't on the agenda. If you, thanks for sitting through all this. It's a good education, wasn't it? If you, before you do that again, if you just go on the North Huron site, and then you can actually go right through the whole thing, just pick out the council meeting for that night. It's usually put down on Friday, and you can go in there and just see if it's on there.
I did receive an email from Dwayne
Oh,
regarding.
Yeah, go back. Go back and look at that. There was discussion about bringing it forward, but we had a staff member who was on vacation,
She
which
said
I
I
was
should
not
have had
aware
it.
of. So I apologize.
I apologize for that too, sir.
Yeah.
But was it fun?
Oh, enjoyable.
Come on back another day.